David and I had been together for 5 years. He was everything to me, my husband, my friend, my rock. From the very beginning of our relationship, he showered me with care and attention. It felt like he knew what I wanted before I even had to say it, but at some point, I started taking it all for granted. His love, his patience, his kindness, they all became just part of the background. And eventually, it started to annoy me. He was too perfect, the type of person who gives everything of themselves without reservation. He yielded to me in everything, always supported me, always stood by my side. Sometimes I thought that the only thing missing was a halo above his head. It felt boring. Maybe I was just tired of him never arguing, never showing any determination, or asserting his own character. Or maybe it was simply my own inner desire to seek out what I didn't have. David really wanted children. He had talked about it from the very beginning. He dreamed of a big family, one that was loud and joyful, where we would raise our kids together. And me? I didn't want children. Not then. I thought it was important to live for myself, to enjoy life. I was 24, and I felt too young for such a step. And then I started wondering if maybe I didn't want children with David at all. At some point, I realized I couldn't see a future with him. I got a job as a hairstylist at a small, budget-friendly salon to gain experience. After 2 years, I managed to find work at a prestigious salon in the heart of our city. This salon was owned by a woman named Jenna, an assertive, self-assured person who knew how to make an impression. She was only 26, but she already owned her business. She loved to tell stories of all she had been through, how she had achieved everything on her own, how every man in her life had been just a stepping stone to something bigger. Jenna became something like a mentor to me. She knew how to capture attention. She always looked flawless, spoke bluntly, sometimes too sharply. Her views on life were unconventional for me. She said that love was an illusion, that women should give men what they want and take everything they can from them. No one deserves your tears, she told me. Men have one weak spot, and if you know how to use it, they're yours. Her words were so convincing, and I began to question my own life. I was 25. Jenna inspired me with her confidence. I started spending more time with her, listening to her stories, admiring her success. She had been married twice. The first time, it was for love, but she quickly realized it was a mistake. The second time was for convenience. Her husband was almost 20 years older than her, but he had provided everything: an apartment, a car, the salon. Now she was free, and her life seemed like a fairy tale to me. It was during this time that I began noticing how much David irritated me. His care, his kindness, they all seemed empty, unnecessary. He was trying too hard. Jenna often said that I was wasting my youth on someone who would never truly make me happy. At some point, I began to believe her. The day my life began to unravel, Jenna invited me to dinner. She had a new acquaintance with her, Adam, a man who had come to our city for work and was staying at a hotel near the salon. Adam was charismatic, confident, and his attention was fixed on me. Jenna, it seemed, wasn't bothered by this. She even encouraged me. "He's perfect for you. You deserve more than your boring David." After dinner, Adam invited me to his hotel room. I couldn't resist his charm, his confidence. We spent the night together. The next morning, I realized what I had done. But at that moment, it felt like the beginning of a new life. The morning after that night in Adam's room was strange. Waking up, I looked at his calm face, heard his steady breathing, and felt emptiness. There was no exhilaration, no sense of happiness or freedom, as I had expected. On the contrary, an anxious feeling settled inside me, as if I had done something irreversible. But I pushed that feeling down, convincing myself it was just the first step toward the new life I deserved. When I returned home, David was waiting for me with breakfast. He smiled, asked how dinner had gone, and offered me a cup of coffee. His kindness cut through me like a knife. I remembered the previous night and wondered how he would react if he knew the truth. But he knew nothing, suspected nothing, didn't ask. I felt awful, but almost immediately I shut that feeling down. Jenna had taught me to ignore doubts. "You owe no one anything," she had said. And I made myself believe it. David became like a backdrop to me. I no longer saw in him the person I once loved. Every gesture, every word from him now irritated me. I would look at him and think, why can't you be like Adam? Confident, bold, passionate. I thought I had found the reason for my dissatisfaction. I decided that I no longer loved David, that he wasn't the person I wanted to be with. Adam became my little secret. We met several times while he was in town, and each time I convinced myself that I was doing the right thing. He was nothing like David. With him, I felt different, more attractive, more desired. But I knew Adam wouldn't stay. He would leave, and I would be left where I was. This thought scared me. I didn't want to return to my boring life. I wanted more. During this time, Jenna became my true support. She knew about Adam, knew that I had cheated on my husband, and didn't judge me. On the contrary, she encouraged me. "You deserve better," she said. "David is too simple for you. You need a man who can make you happy." I listened to her and believed she was right. She spoke so convincingly, so confidently, that I couldn't help but trust her. When Adam left, I felt emptiness. I missed his attention, his words, his confidence. David remained the same, caring, kind, devoted. But now it seemed even more irritating. I couldn't understand why he didn't see that I had changed. Why didn't he notice that I wasn't the person I once was? His blind love began to weigh me down. Jenna offered me a solution. She told me that if I really wanted to change my life, I needed to find a man who would meet my expectations. "Adam was just the beginning," she said. "You deserve more." I listened to her and thought, maybe she was right. One day, Jenna introduced me to Tom, another acquaintance of hers. He was even more charismatic, even more confident than Adam. We went out to dinner together, and everything repeated itself. Tom paid more attention to me than to Jenna, and she didn't seem to mind. "If you like him, take him," she said. "I don't care." I cheated on my husband again, and again, I felt that same emptiness. But this time, I didn't try to find meaning in it. I just kept moving forward, convincing myself that I was doing the right thing. Jenna was there, supporting me, praising my courage. "You're doing great," she said. "You finally started living for yourself." David seemed to begin suspecting something. He started asking more questions, showing interest in where I had been, who I had been spending time with. But I knew how to lie. I knew how to calm him down, make him believe everything was fine, and he believed me. He believed me because he loved me. It was his weakness and my greatest advantage. My relationship with Tom became my escape from the dull, proper life with David. Tom was exactly what I had been missing. He was confident, charismatic, passionate, everything my husband was not. With him, I felt different. Desirable, important, significant. And although I knew it wasn't love, I felt it was the best thing that had happened to me. Tom often said that I deserved more, and I began to believe his words more and more. David, however, remained the same as he had always been. He loved me, took care of me. but I could no longer tolerate it. His perfection was suffocating me. I wanted to scream that he was too good, too boring, that his love had become a heavy burden. But I remained silent. I didn't want to seem angry, ungrateful. I was looking for a reason to end everything. Jenna noticed my struggles and offered her solution. "If you can't just leave him, find a way to make him feel guilty," she said. "You need an excuse to feel better about yourself." At first, I didn't agree with her, but over time, I realized she was right. I couldn't just walk away. I needed something that would justify my departure in David's eyes. And I decided to find that reason. At first, I tried to provoke a conflict. I nitpicked at small things, criticized him for everything, created scenes. But David stayed calm. He agreed with me, apologized, even when he wasn't at fault. This irritated me even more. It seemed like he was deliberately making me feel guilty. His patience and kindness became a true test for me. At some point, I decided I needed a more radical solution. I told Jenna about my idea, and she immediately agreed to help me. "This will be fun," she said with a smirk. We devised a plan. Jenna was supposed to seduce David. I knew she was good at it. She could make any man lose his mind. I thought that if he cheated on me, I could leave without feeling guilty. That evening, Jenna came over to our house under the pretense of joining us for dinner. We cooked, opened some wine. I watched how she interacted with David, how she smiled at him, how she flirted. But he didn't react. He was polite, but distant. After dinner, I left them alone and went to another room. I waited, hoping everything would go according to plan. But the next day, Jenna returned to me, disappointed. "He's too honest," she said. "I did everything I could, but he didn't even look at me as a woman." Her words hit me hard. I felt like a traitor. My guilt was so overwhelming that I almost burst into tears right in front of Jenna. But she quickly took control of the situation. "There's another way," she said. She pulled out a small bottle of clear liquid from her purse. "This will put him to sleep, and then we'll do everything ourselves." I should have stopped. In that moment, I should have realized how far I had gone. But I didn't stop. I agreed to her plan. We arranged another dinner, invited David, opened another bottle of wine. Jenna subtly slipped the potion into his glass, and within half an hour, he was asleep at the table. We carried him to the bedroom, undressed him, and laid him in bed. Jenna took off her dress and lay down next to him. It was horrifying, but I couldn't stop. The next morning, I staged a scene. I burst into the bedroom, saw them together, and started screaming. David woke up, completely confused. He tried to explain that he didn't know how he ended up in bed with Jenna, but I wouldn't listen. I screamed, accused him, threw things. I said I was filing for divorce and ran out of the apartment, slamming the door. Jenna stayed behind. I knew she would take care of everything. That day, I felt relief. I had done what I set out to do. I had found my reason to leave. But that relief quickly turned to guilt. I realized how awful my actions had been, but I couldn't go back. I had already made my choice. After that night with Jenna, I was certain I had done the right thing. I left David, rid myself of the boredom, and started a new life. Tom greeted me with a smile when I arrived at his place the next day. He was pleased that I had chosen him. We quickly packed my things and left the city. I had left everything behind: the apartment, the friends, the past. Now I had a new future, one with Tom. At first, everything felt like a fairy tale. Tom rented a cozy house in San Antonio, Texas. We dined at fancy restaurants, walked the streets hand in hand like teenagers. He told me I was the most beautiful, the smartest, the most amazing woman he had ever met. I reveled in it, trying not to think about what I had left behind. Jenna continued to support me from afar. We rarely spoke, but every time we did, she reassured me that I had made the right choice. "David is the past," she would say. "Now you have everything you dreamed of." And I believed her. Or at least I tried to. But the fairy tale didn't last long. A few months in, Tom started changing. At first, it was little things. He became irritated when I talked on the phone for too long or asked why I was taking so long at the store. Then he began forbidding me from seeing my friends. "They're a bad influence on you," he would say. "I just want you to be safe." I tried to explain that I needed social interaction, but he wouldn't listen. His confidence, which had initially attracted me, now started to frighten me. I found myself thinking about David more and more. His kindness, patience, care. Tom was the complete opposite. While David had always tried to make me happy, Tom expected me to make him happy. His jealousy became unbearable. He would cause scenes if I was 5 minutes late. One day, he smashed my phone because he thought I was texting someone behind his back. I wanted to leave, but I didn't know where to go. I couldn't go back to David. I had destroyed everything we had. And Jenna. I began to realize that her advice hadn't always been in my best interest. Maybe she had just used me to prove something to herself, or maybe she really thought she was helping. Either way, I was alone. At some point, I realized that Tom didn't love me. To him, I was just another toy, another trophy. He didn't say it directly, but his actions spoke for themselves. He could disappear for the entire day and then come back as if nothing had happened. Sometimes I'd find women's jewelry in his pockets or smell someone else's perfume on his clothes, but I stayed quiet. I was afraid of him, afraid of his anger, his words, his strength. When I got pregnant, I thought this might change everything. I thought the baby would bring us closer, that it would restore what we once had. But Tom took the news differently. "Are you kidding me?" he yelled. "We never agreed on having kids." He forced me to get an abortion. I hated him for that, but I couldn't do anything. I felt weak, helpless, broken. My life had turned into a nightmare. Tom had started raising his hand to me. At first it was just light shoves, then slaps, and eventually full blows. I cried at night, cursing myself for everything I had done. I hated myself for leaving David, for trusting Jenna, for choosing Tom. I deserved everything that happened to me, and I knew it. One night, after another argument, I made a decision. I had to leave. I didn't know where to go, but I knew I couldn't stay. The next morning, I packed my things, approached Tom, and told him I was leaving. He laughed in my face. "Good luck," he said. "You're not needed by anyone anymore." As I left Tom's house, I felt a mix of fear and relief. I couldn't stay with him any longer, but I didn't know where to go. The only place that came to mind was the town where I had lived with David. I convinced myself that he still loved me, that I could explain everything, apologize, and we would start over. 2 days later, I returned to our old town. Sitting on the bus, I imagined our reunion. I saw myself opening the door, seeing David's surprised face, then watching him smile, happy to see me again. I thought he would hug me, tell me how much he missed me, that he still loved me. Those thoughts warmed me. I believed that everything could be fixed. When I arrived at our old house, my heart raced. I stood in front of the door for a long time, unable to bring myself to knock. Finally, gathering my courage, I pressed the doorbell. It opened almost immediately, but instead of David, there was Jenna. I barely recognized her. She had changed. Gone was the bold makeup, the glamorous outfits, the haughty smile. Standing before me was a woman with softer features, wearing a simple green sweater and a denim dress. Her belly had rounded. She was late in her pregnancy. "Meg? What are you doing here?" she asked coldly but politely. I didn't know what to say. Jenna wasn't even in my thoughts. I couldn't understand why she was here, why she was opening the door to my house. Finally, I asked, "Where's David?" She invited me in. Everything inside had changed. There was new furniture, a baby's toys in the corner of the room. Jenna explained that after I left, David had been in a terrible state. She had been there for him, supporting him. One day, he had tried to take his own life. She had found him in the bathroom with his wrists cut and managed to get him help just in time. She spent days and nights with him in the hospital, helping him recover. "He taught me how to love," she said. "Real love isn't what I knew before. It's not about games or getting something out of it. He gave me hope that I could be someone different." She told me they were now married and expecting a child. This was their first baby, and for her it was a miracle because doctors had said she would never be able to have children. I listened, unable to believe what I was hearing. I knew Jenna had always been manipulative, capable of deceiving anyone. But there was truth in her words. I could see how she had changed. I could see how the apartment had changed. All of it pointed to the fact that she had found happiness with David, with my David. "Don't come here again," she said as I was about to leave. "David is happy. I did everything to put his heart back together, and I won't let you break it again." I left the house feeling like my world was crumbling. I wandered the streets, not knowing where to go. I tried to justify my actions. Maybe it was all Jenna. Maybe she had set everything up to take David away from me. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was the one who ruined our marriage. I was the one who destroyed everything we had. The next day, I left the town. I realized there was nothing left for me here. David was happy, and I had no right to destroy that. Now, I live in a small town in Arizona, renting a room and working as a hairstylist in an affordable salon. I don't speak to Jenna. I don't try to contact David. Sometimes I think about him, about what our future could have been. But I know those are just my dreams. I lost him. And it's my fault.